Ready? All right, if you would turn to 1 Samuel chapter 9. This past Wednesday evening, we preached a sermon titled Israel Wants a King. And I had mentioned in that sermon that we might keep going a little ways and have a little short series in that, and I think that's what we'll do. We started in chapter 8, and we talked about the things leading up to Saul becoming king. We're going to go through. There's going to be a lot of reading this morning because I don't want to leave anything out, of course. But we'll be going through chapter 9. If we get time, we'll go to chapter 10 also. I know that's a lot of reading, but there's things that I want to look at that maybe we haven't looked at before, and about Saul and about that whole situation that took place before he became king. It's not until chapter 10 that he becomes king, but we see a little bit about him before that. And to note here, remember, Saul, this is not something Saul was seeking after. It appears that the Lord says a few different times that he was a goodly man. Doesn't call him a godly man, but a goodly man. In other words, he was of good nature. He was maybe even morally good. We don't see any evidence of anything otherwise of that. He was from a good family. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. And I mentioned last time also that, if you remember, Christ didn't come from the line of Saul. Which line did he come from? The line of, we think of he came from David. He was David's referred to as the father of Jesus, because Jesus was in his earthly presence anyway was from the bloodline of David. So what tribe was David from? David was from the tribe of Judah. How do we know that? Well, if you go and study the story of David, you see that, of course. But also remember, the prophecy was the Messiah was going to come from, or the Messiah was going to, one of his titles, one of his names, was the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And that goes all the way back in the Old Testament. And of course, it's talked about in the New Testament also. And so the Lion of the tribe of Judah, so the Messiah was to come from the tribe of Judah, not from the tribe of Benjamin. And remember, eventually, when you get past Solomon, and when Solomon's son loses control of the kingdom, and the kingdom splits, it's Benjamin and Judah that stay in the southern kingdom. The other 10 tribes go north. And so Benjamin is a very important part in the history of Israel, of course. It was the smallest of the tribes, but along with Judah, it stayed where they were supposed to stay when the split came. Now, as far as Saul is concerned, it appears as though he starts out as a good person. The Lord is the one that appoints him as king, but it's at the demands of the people of Israel. He's not the man that God intends to be their king. Eventually, Saul is just temporary. He's a temporary king. He's there. God puts him in as king to teach Israel a lesson. And by the time David comes, they learn their lesson for a time anyway, for a few generations. But Saul turns out not to be so nice. And we saw last time in chapter 8, Samuel described to the people of Israel the prophecy of what's going to come of their king, of their first king that they were going to have, all the problems that he's going to cause, and he's going to become a tyrant. He's going to become a very wicked man. He's not that way in the beginning, and we'll see that today. So in chapter 9, 1 Samuel chapter 9, verse 1, now there was a man of Benjamin, whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bechoroth, the son of Aphiah, a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. So this man Kish is a mighty man of power. In other words, he's a warrior type person. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. He was what we would say head and shoulders above, taller than the rest of the, or at least the average man in Israel in their day. He wasn't a giant, but he was a big man. And I don't know, there's all kinds of guesses out there. Some say that the average height of the men in Israel in that day were, 5'6" to 5'8", 5'6" to 5'8". Some say that Saul would have been maybe 6 foot tall, 6'1", 6'2", somewhere in there. I don't know where they get that information, but that's what they say. And even today, you look at the Jewish people, and there are a few, but they're not normally tall in stature. So he's a young man, a choice young man. In other words, he's a very good young man. He's intelligent. He's bright. He's goodly, it says. He's a good person. There was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. So he stood out as being a kind person, intelligent, maybe even handsome. We don't know. He doesn't really tell us here, but he was recognized for these features. Verse 3, and the asses of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul, his son, take now one of the servants with thee, and arise, go seek the asses. And so his father thinks enough of him that he can trust him. His asses have gone astray. They've run off, or somebody has stolen them. They don't know which. And he sends his son, Saul, and one of his servants to go find them. That's how trustworthy he was. And he passed through Mount Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalisha, but they found them not. Then they passed through the land of Shalem, and there they were not. And he passed through the land of the Benjamites, but they found them not. They went through the whole land, all the land of Benjamin, and couldn't find them. And when they were come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant that was with him, come and let us return, lest my father leave caring for the asses and take thought for us. So Saul, this is how good a man he was, how considerate he was. He realized, hey, we've been gone a long time. If we stay gone much longer, my father's going to become worried about us more than he's worried about losing his asses, and we need to get back. And that's what he tells the servant. And he said unto him, behold now there is in this city a man of God, and he is an honorable man. All that he saith cometh surely to pass. Now let us go thither. Peradventure he can show us our way that we should go. So this servant realizes, he's like, hey, in this city, there's this man there. There's this man of God. There's a prophet there. It's Solomon. I mean, not Solomon. It's Samuel. Samuel. And so they've heard of this man. They know his prophecies have come true. He's not missed one prophecy. That's the sign of a true prophet. If you go back to the law, God told Moses, if a prophet, if a man's out there prophesying and as much as one prophecy does not come to pass, he's a false prophet, and you need to stone him. Well, Samuel was not a false prophet. Samuel was of God, and we've got 2 books here to prove that. But verse 7, then said Saul to his servant, but behold, if we go, what shall we bring the man? For the bread is spent in our vessels, and there is not a present to bring to the man of God. What have we? And the servant answered Saul again and said, behold, I have here at hand the 4th part of a shekel of silver. That will I give to the man of God to tell us our way. So the custom in their day was, if you went to the man of God, the prophet, priest, whoever it was, you were to take a gift of something. Something of value. It didn't matter what it was, but if you went to him, and that was a custom, and they were to give it to him, and he would be obligated to answer your questions, whatever they were. If they were religious questions, if they were to do with your life in general, whatever. What they're seeking here is can this man, if he's a prophet, can he tell us where my father's asses are? Well, that's the goal. And so all they've got is a 4th part of a shekel of silver. It's not much, but that's all they got between them. They run out of food. It's time they're about ready to give up and go home. Now, verse 9 gives us a little bit of explanation here of we're going to see later in this story. Before time in Israel, when a man went to inquire of God, thus he spake, come and let us go to the seer. For he that is now called a prophet was before time called a seer. So, before this time, or before the time that this book was written, the book of 1 Samuel, the common term for a prophet in Israel was seer. Now, we think today seer doesn't always mean a good thing. Usually it means a false prophet or someone who preaches falsely, or even witchcraft we think of as seers. But in this case, it was just another term, another name for prophet. They were referred to as seers and not prophets. And so we'll see that as we go along, they'll talk about the seer, and the seer they're referring to is Samuel. Then said Saul to his servant, well said, come, let us go. So they went unto the city where the man of God was. And as they went up the hill to the city, they found young maidens going out to draw water, and said unto them, is the seer here? Now, one of 2 things. Usually, when you've seen the young maidens, and if you think back go all the way back to Isaac and Rebekah. Remember when Abraham sent his servant to seek out a wife for his son Isaac, and he came upon Rebekah. She was at the well gathering water for her father's flocks, or for her family's flocks. Her father was dead, but her family's flocks. Well, they would do this at the end of the day, or when it was getting close to the end of the day, to water the animals before nightfall. And so they come in, Saul and his servant come to this city. They see the young maidens drawing the water. They're either drawing water either for the flocks or for home use, whichever. In any case, this would have been done in the evenings or late in the afternoons. And they ask them if the seer is there. Is the prophet here? Is Samuel here? And they answered them and said, he is. Behold, he is before you. Make haste now, for he came today to the city, for there is a sacrifice of the people today in the high place. So the prophet's there for a reason. The seer, or whatever you want to call him, he's there for a reason. He's there because he's there to offer a sacrifice, it says, of the people in the high place. If you remember, before the temple was built, and when they were still using the tabernacle, the people that couldn't get to where the tabernacle was, that didn't live close enough, you had high places where a priest, or in this case a prophet, would come and would offer sacrifices for the people to worship God. It was their form of worship. And then if you remember, after the temple was built, they were not to use these high places anymore, were they? Because they had the temple. And so after the temple was built, the high places became a place of evil. They became a place of false worship. Oftentimes they turned them into places where they worshiped false gods. But in this case, it's a good place. It's a place, they said in the high place, there was a designated place for this city, a high place on a hill somewhere close by the city, or maybe even within the city walls. It doesn't tell us here, but it was both ways then, wherever they could find a high place. That's where they would offer their sacrifices. Usually they tried to use the highest point in that area, wherever they lived. And in verse 13, as soon as ye be come into the city, ye shall straightway find him, before he go up to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he come, because he doth bless the sacrifice. And afterwards they eat that be bidden. Now therefore get ye up, for about this time ye shall find him. Now remember, when they offer these sacrifices, they didn't waste anything. The meat went to the priest, or in this case the prophet. He was to eat. And then, and of course there were others there with him that were part of the worship service. Sometimes it was other priests, sometimes it was the elders of the city, whoever he invited. That's who would sit and eat with him, and they would eat the meat from that sacrifice. And so these maidens tell Saul and his servant, hurry, because he's about to go to the sacrifice. He's about to go perform the sacrifice. So you need to hurry, and if you got questions for him, you need to ask him now before he gets there. So they went up into the city, and when they were come into the city, behold, Samuel came out against them for to go up to the high place. Now the Lord had told Samuel in his ear a day before Saul came, saying, tomorrow about this time I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hand of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people, because their cry is come unto me. So Samuel knows about Saul already. God's already talked to him about him. Told him his name, probably told him a little bit about him. And he tells him he's going to be the new king. He's going to be the captain. You're going to put him in charge, and he's going to raise an army and defeat the Philistines. And that's what that eventually happens. Verse 17, and when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, behold, the man whom I spake to thee of, this same shall reign over my people. So God told Samuel, this is him. Go to him. This is the man who's going to be in charge. And we see here that Saul is called of God for this purpose, to defeat the Philistines, to free Israel from the overlords of the Philistines. Now, we find out later that he's going to be king, but for now, he just refers to him as a captain of the people, but eventually he's going to be named king. That comes in the next chapter. But know that, again, Saul is not seeking this out. Saul is a humble, at this point in his life, he's a very humble man. He's concerned about his father's livestock that has escaped and run off. That's all he cares about, is getting them back for his father. He has no desire to be a leader over the people of Israel. Certainly not the whole nation. Maybe over his father's people, but not the whole nation. But the Lord has other plans for him that he doesn't know about yet. He's expressed them to Samuel, but Saul doesn't know yet. Then Saul drew near to Samuel in the gate and said, "Tell me, I pray thee, where the seer's house is." So Saul doesn't even know Samuel. Never met him before. As far as we know, he's never seen him before. And so he asks this man, obviously the first man he comes to in the gate. And if you remember, the common practice again in their day and time was that the elders of the city, sometimes the elders of the city, the elders of the temple, the prophets, the men who were well thought of, who were important in the community, usually sit at the gate of the city waiting for someone to come through, usually waiting on each other oftentimes. They'd waiting on other important men to come through and would stop and talk and tell the local gossip or whatever they were there to do, give a message, if so be it, whatever was going on. They would give the announcements of what was taking place in the city that day, whatever entertainment was there, or the sales at Walmart or whatever they had at the market. They were there for that reason. Samuel, in this case, was there because God told him to stay there and wait for Saul. Samuel, however, normally would have been sitting there waiting as people were coming and going, and again, talking with people, just being doing his job as the man of God, witnessing to people, preaching, maybe even preaching the gospel to them as they come and went. And Samuel answered Saul and said, "I am the seer. Go up before me unto the high place, for you shall eat with me today, and tomorrow I will let thee go, and will tell thee all that is in thine heart." And so Samuel tells Saul, "Go up before I go to the sacrifice, go to the high place." We'll see here in a bit where it appears as though there was some kind of a dwelling there, a house or something at the high place where they would have a meal, where they could have a meal and sit and eat after the sacrifice was over with. And so when he says that you can eat with me today and tomorrow, that's what he's talking about. It's going to be a several-day event. But Samuel also tells him, "I'm going to tell you all that's in your heart. Everything that you desire, everything that you have questions about, I'll let you know the answers to. And as for thine asses," here's the number one question Samuel has. "As for thy asses, they that were lost 3 days ago." Remember, they've not seen each other. They've never met. And yet Samuel knows why Saul is out doing what he's doing. "Set not thy mind on them, for they are found." Don't worry. They've been found. "And on whom is all the desire of Israel? Is it not on thee and on thy father's house?" So the more important thing is, what is the desire of Israel? What was the desire of Israel at this point in time? A king. They wanted a king. Is it not on thee? In other words, Israel, the king that they need, or the king that they desire, is you. Their hearts are on you. They don't know you yet, They've not met you yet. They don't know who you are yet, but you are the man. And on all thy father's house. So it would be an honor. It's going to be an honor to his father for his son to become king, of course. His father is going to become somebody. He'll be a big name in the country after his son becomes king. Verse 21, and Saul answered and said, Am not I a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel? And my family the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Wherefore then speakest thou so to me? Well, why are you telling me this? I'm nobody. You know, my family is nobody. They weren't. They might have had some wealth, but they're not as wealthy as others. He said they're the least of the tribe of Benjamin. They weren't even that important in their own tribe. The people of Israel had no clue who they were even. They were just a bunch of nobodies. They're just average guys, average people. And Samuel took Saul and his servant and brought them into the parlor and made them sit in the chiefest place among them that were bidden, which were about 30 persons. So here you've got these people there for the feast at the end of the sacrifice. And Samuel brings Saul and his servant in and puts them in the best seats in the house, in front of the whole crowd. About 30 people, it says, are there to eat. These people have all been invited by Samuel for this purpose. In verse 23, and Samuel said unto the cook, Bring the portion which I gave thee, of which I said unto thee, set it by thee. So Samuel knew all this was going to happen. The Lord had already revealed all this to Samuel. Remember, he's a prophet. He's the prophet of God. Samuel has already talked with the cook and told him, there's somebody coming, somebody special coming. You save the best cut of meat for them. You save the very best of the meal for this man. And so he had set it aside, and the cook took up the shoulder and that which was upon it, and set it before Saul. So the animal, the shoulder of the animal was the choicest meat of the animal. And Samuel said, Behold, that which is left. Set it before thee, and eat. For unto this time hath it been kept for thee since I said, I have invited the people. So Saul did eat with Samuel that day. Saul didn't ask any questions, did he? He just did what he was told. And when they were come down from the high place into the city, Samuel communed with Saul upon the top of the house. And they arose early, and it came to pass about the spring of the day that Samuel called Saul to the top of the house, saying, Up, that I may send thee away. And Saul arose, and they went out both of them, he and Samuel, abroad. And as they were going down to the end of the city, Samuel said to Saul, Bid the servant pass on before us. And he passed on, but stand thou still a while, that I may show thee the word of God. Samuel, again, he's already been informed by God what's going to happen and what he needs to do. He's been instructed. And he follows through with those instructions. Remember, Samuel's not happy about Israel having a king. We saw that in the last chapter, in chapter 8. But he's following God's command, as he should. He's the prophet, the man of God in that part of the country in that day. He is the one that the nation's going to listen to. Remember, the nation of Israel, the elders of the nation, had already come to Samuel and told him they wanted a king. They thought enough of him to let him know that his two sons were not good judges, that they were wicked men, and Samuel understood that. And God had warned Samuel what would happen if they got a king. And Samuel has warned the people, but they still insist on having a king. And God has told Samuel it's going to be Saul. It's going to be this man Saul. He's going to be their first king. And we see no indication at all in this chapter of how Saul turns out later. All we know is what Samuel told the people in chapter 8 about how wicked the king would be, how they would lose all their property, how they would become servants to the king. Their young men were going to become soldiers in the king's army. All that happens later. Remember, in the story of David and Goliath, David's older brothers. It was just David left to watch his father's sheep. All his older brothers had gone to battle. They had gone to fight the Philistines with King Saul. So that was how it was, or how it would be in the future under the rule of King Saul. But we don't see any of that wickedness yet in this story when we start reading about Saul here in chapter 9. He's a goodly man. He's a moral man. He's trustworthy. He's humble. We see that he respects the man of God. He respects the sacrifice, the worship of God. Did he participate in that worship? It doesn't tell us, but if he's there, you would assume he did. He partook of the meal, and if you didn't partake of the worship, you wouldn't have been permitted to partake of the meal. To all indications are that is up until this point is that Saul is a good man. There's nothing that says about him being a godly man. It just refers to him. God just calls him a goodly man. He's not wicked. He's not a denier of God. He's not rebelling against God in any way that we can see. He follows Samuel's commands. What Samuel tells him, he doesn't really care for Samuel telling him that he's going to be the leader. We see that, but he accepts it. But at this point in time also, it doesn't go to his head yet. He's not high and mighty about it. He's not ready to jump out there and take over all of a sudden, like some men do. He's being patient and waiting till the time's right. And Samuel, you see here, Samuel tells him, send your servant ahead. You stay behind. I got some things to talk to you about. Just between us and the Lord. That's all it's about. And so Samuel, we'll see again next time in chapter 10, we'll see where Samuel anoints Saul. He gives his blessing on Saul to be king. Again, ever so often in this story, you'll see God gives his warning to the nation that, hey, you've got a king now, but he's not who I approved of. God puts him in place, but remember, God put him there to teach Israel a lesson. Again, he starts out as a good man, but eventually he becomes a tyrant and a very wicked man. So, Lord willing, we'll get to that. Won't be tonight. Possibly we'll take up with this more maybe on Wednesday night. We'll see, or next Sunday morning. We'll see where the Lord leads with that. So that's all we have for this morning.